Alexander with us today. He's visiting. Might come up and introduce yourself to him. If you've got your book, I ask you to turn to lesson number 8. I got a medical announcement that I'd like to make. If anybody in here is suffering from high blood pressure, from really low blood pressure, if you'll let me know, I'll let my wife ride with you when you're driving, and she can get that blood pressure right on up there. You know, sometimes I think I can't do anything right. Stop. Don't hit them. Stop. But she's a good one, and I guess I'm a bad driver. But today we're going to be talking about Christ's motives for liberality. And the aim of our lesson is to show that Christ has promised rewards for liberality. And if there's only one thing in this whole series of lessons that we need to try to get out of what we're studying, it's that what we have is not ours. We work for it and we earn it, but God blesses us with it. So, and we need to keep focused on how we should deal with that. And that's one of the things we're going to do today. Our memory verse is Luke chapter 12, chapter 12, verse 15. And this is an attitude and a position that we need to take, each one of us. And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesses. You know, spiritual people, that's usually not a very big problem, but for people of the world, but I suppose for some Christians, it could be a problem. But for the world, it's everything. I've always noticed that people in the world. I used to be a commercial landscape contractor in Nashville, and I can remember meeting people, and they would pull up in some of the fanciest cars you've ever seen, and the whole time that I'd be talking to them, they'd be jingling their change in their pocket, like they're checking to make sure it hadn't left. One of the greatest problems facing any effort is motivation. If we can produce proper motivation to acceptable service, the service will follow. And if we can instill in the minds of people proper motivation to liberality will follow. We must have a reason for our actions. Does anybody need a book? I gave you one, but anybody else need a book? Okay. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 20, Jesus is giving us some sound financial advice. You know, we go to a lot of trouble and pay a lot of money to people that manage our personal assets. Well, I don't, because I don't have many, but unlike me, most of you probably could. But concerning our treasures in heaven, in Matthew 6, verse 19 through 20, so where are our treasures? Where are we to lay up our treasures? In heaven. And name 3 destructive influences to earthly possessions. Rust, moths, thieves. I have a particular dislike for theft. But where did Jesus say to lay up treasures? In heaven. Much of the wealth of ancient people consisted of beautiful and expensive clothing, which would make great display. Their clothing often was equipped with costly and glittering ornamental objects. And what did Jesus say would happen to our garments? Moth and rust would corrupt them. There's nothing wrong with dressing nice, and I don't want to imply that, but we just need to remember where our treasure is. Jesus here gave self-interest in the motive for giving. He shows that the use of money invested in spiritual services is a wise investment that pays great dividends to the investor. Jesus shows that the wealth hereafter is conditioned upon sending money ahead by giving to worthy causes. This is a powerful motive. Where would sending money ahead be to? What's he referencing here? That's right. We need to ever be mindful of and focused on the fact that everything we do influences somebody. Everything we do is seen by God. Every good thing we do is noticed by God. Every bad thing we do is noticed by God. So if we're focusing on good things, then we need to make sure that those things that we are doing that are good benefit other people. Notice here the author says, all of life is an investment. Success and joy result from receiving adequate and enduring returns from our investment. I'm going to tell you something that I never did do, and some of you know my youngest son, Cody. Cody's very bright, and Cody finds things. He notices things, and it took me a long time to realize that he's pretty sharp. He don't keep his garage clean, but he's really sharp. He called me one night and he said, Daddy, I don't even remember what stock it was. He said, you and Mama need to take everything you've got and put it in this stock. He says, it's going to start out tomorrow at the lowest it's ever been in its 100-something year history. But it's going to turn around and rebound right back. And I said, well, okay, son, I appreciate that. So I didn't do anything. The stock had dropped to $32.34. It had been $121. Well, I didn't do anything because I guess I buried my talent in the ground. Well, it wasn't but about a month and a half, 2 months later, I forgot all about it. Looked at the stock market report, looked at that company. I'll tell you who it was. It was Eastman in Kingsport. And it's back up to 121. So I could have quadrupled my investment. But you know what? There's a part of me, and I don't know if y'all will admit this. I'll admit it to you. There's just something about gaining a lot of wealth scares me because I've seen what it does to people. I told you maybe one time before, I don't remember, about a man that I used to work for. He couldn't stop. He'd work 7 days a week. And everything had to be hurry up all the time. And he'd come up and say, come on, we need to get this done over here because I got a grand opening that day. Let's get this done. Just a ball of fire. And I decided I was in Franklin, and they had a Dillard's or something over there that had opened up in that new mall. Back then it was new, it's not now. And I went in to see if I could find any good deals on men's clothes. And I'm kind of looking up, and I see him over there, and I go over there to say something to him, and I'll never forget this, the insensitivity of what I saw. It was the day before Christmas, and he was walking around. He had put everything off to the very, very last minute. And the woman that he had given his heart to, I presume, he was walking around, and he was just like, pick his pocketbook up, and he'd pick that up, and he was walking around. He said, how much is this cologne? Let me have one of those. And before too long, within 3 or 4 minutes, he had a big old pile of stuff, no thought whatsoever into it. And somebody somewhere is going to say, thank you so much, but you're welcome. I give no thought to it, and it means squat to me. And I thought how pitiful it was. Enormously wealthy. You would know his name if I told you. You've seen it on TV. But let's don't get that possessed with wealth and things of the world. Let's do good with what we have and benefit more than just us. Somebody told me one time, said, I can't give. I know I should give more, but I can't. I got a lot to pay for, and I want to make sure that I leave my kids a good inheritance. And I didn't think before I said, I do that a lot. I said, well, I plan on spending all mine. And he said, because I got more money than I'll ever have. And he said, oh, you can't do that. You can't do. I don't know. It was just a thought. But as far as giving to others or giving to the church, everything else that I need to pay, most of the time the world's got it backwards. You got entertainment, you got eating out, you got the house note, utilities, blank, 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 and this. Okay, now how much is left? So we need to give some of that. It's got it backwards. The Lord's church ought to be at the front. And we spend accordingly. You agree with that, Steve? You made me think of we've all heard situations of where soldiers or somebody in a dire situation maybe a soldier in a foxhole somewhere. This is what I'm going to share with you, just a personal thought. When I see people protesting against our flag, number one, I can just feel my blood boiling. And I try to keep that under the way it should be. But I think about two things. I think about that soldier it's in a foxhole that would give every single thing he had if he could just go home. Shells are bursting everywhere. I'd give anything if I could just go home and get out of this. And then I think about that Iwo Jima soldier that's getting off that boat thing that pulls up, lets soldiers out, and he's got a big old pack of stuff, and he doesn't get from here to Steve, and probably a 50 caliber German machine gun takes him down. Those are the things I think about. Those are the things that I focus on when I think about sacrifice on this earth. And when I see things like that, and don't ask me how I got off on that, but I do. I'm scatterbrained. I'm sorry. But anyway, all life is an investment. Success and joy result from receiving adequate and enduring returns from our investment. This is true in Christianity. Happiness is found in Christian liberality as it is found in nothing else. One thing that I was thinking about when I was preparing this lesson, and I have since given up on trying to make comments that would improve upon it because I just can't do it. This man did a really good job with this. But I was thinking about the joy that we feel when we bring in our Christmas presents and maybe one of our grandkids. Boy, I can't wait till he opens that up. Man, is he going to be surprised. And he opens it up and he goes, "Poppy!" And he comes running to you and thanks you. Boy, your heart just wells up with pride, and you give that to him, and I guarantee you the feeling you get from giving that to him far exceeds what he feels. When we can understand that attitude, then we'll be able to give and be glad in it. We don't have to be recognized for when we give, because that's between us and God. But it was saying here that we will receive an abundant joy when we are liberal with our giving. On the second page, selfishness is sin, but interest is in self is not sin. If we cared nothing for ourselves, it would be useless to be taught to love our neighbor as ourselves. Of course, that's true. I wrote down here beside this much emphasis when we get to this section here in section 8. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Like that man that was gathering up his Christmas gifts with no thought, no planning, no nothing. Just pick up something, and you wouldn't do that if you went to the store. You wouldn't do that if you were going to a doctor. I wouldn't doubt that he was trying to get the most inexpensive things he could find. What folly to store your treasure in the place that you must leave soon. You got to think about that. Of everything that we have, it's like Steve said, you're not taking it with you. Toward the end of our book here, it's talking about the rich farmer, foolish rich farmer. Now whose is it going to be? Everything he had, his big barns, and now whose is what you have going to be? You know, we've all went to estate auctions and stuff, and I can always go to those, and I like to go to auctions. We really, really like to go to auctions. We don't buy much because we don't have much room to put anything. But we like to go, and I'll see, in estate auctions, I'll see little trinkets. Maybe it's an old ink pen from long ago, or maybe it's a little piece of jewelry, costume jewelry from long ago. And it's sometime or another, that was somebody's treasure. And now where are they? They're gone. So their treasure is being sold off to the highest bidder. And ours will be too. And I feel sorry for my boys when they have to deal with that. It'd be a long auction. Somebody go, why would anybody want that thing? Because Terry and Kathy wouldn't throw it away. But anyway, what folly to store your treasure in the place you must leave soon. Let's keep that in mind. Our thoughts, even our very hearts, abide with that which we cherish most highly. Is it wrong to try to seek gain? Of course not. Is it wrong to try to provide for your family and really let them have a really nice house, clean house, and plenty of space? No. But where it becomes sinful is when that is our number one motivation in life, is getting as much as we can pile up for us and to keep it. And then our kids see us living like that, and to make sure they get it good and steady, we give it to them when we die. And now they got a pile of money. So much good can be done. I bet Greg would tell you if you ask him how many good things the extra good things they could do, and I think they do a great job. And elders don't get very much appreciation sometimes. I've always been either a supervisor, manager, or owner of every business I've ever worked in. And the ones that make all the decisions are the ones that never get thanked. So we need to make sure we thank our elders. But Greg, I bet there would be a lot of extra could be done if all of a sudden our church could realize more than what it has. Wouldn't you say? Stands to reason. So let's keep the church and those that are lost, and what the leadership of our church can do to pursue those that are lost. Let's keep in mind that they need the resources that it takes. You know, I read the other day they're fixing to build a 66-story building in Nashville. I don't know if he did it because he couldn't get much real estate or what, but it looked like it was about 40 foot wide and 40 foot square, and it was up 60 something floors. But he has to secure the funds to build that, and our elders can only do with what we provide them with. And we do a good job here, and I don't want to misrepresent that. This church does a really good job with its giving, but let's make sure that all of us are giving everything that we can. The only way in number 9, the only way we can have treasure in heaven when we arrive there is to send it ahead now. You know, I'm just going to use a very simple example. We got a scorecard. Every one of us has got a scorecard. And when we do good, we get credit for that. When we help other people, we get credit for that. When we're kind to somebody, we get credit for that. When we're nasty to somebody, we get credits taken off of it. You know, but we're being watched in everything we do, and we need to set our sights on things above, and we all know that. But we can't take it with us. Christ's law of giving and receiving. God is a God of law and order in the universe and in spiritual matters. And I wanted to emphasize these 4 points. I've always appreciated simple logic. If we would live, we must have the necessities of life. Simple. We all know that. If we would reap a harvest, we must sow and cultivate. There's no doubt about it. You can't get something to come up if you hadn't worked the ground and prepared the soil and planted the seed. If we would receive mercy, we must show mercy. And if we would receive generously, we must give generously. Simple logic. Now, I don't know anything that is more important than this verse here below number D. This is in Luke 6:38. Give, and it shall be given unto you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you mete or measure, withal it shall be measured to you again. Do we believe that? It says it. We believe we ought to be baptized. We believe that we're going to heaven if we live right. We believe that Christ died for us. Well, we need to believe that too. That's exactly right. And I want to tell you a good example of that. I hope you could hear what he said. I've already forgotten your name. Jeff. I want to tell you something that happened to me one time. We used to attend Adams Church of Christ. And if any of you have ever heard of the Bell Witch, you know, they have a big tractor, steam tractor, big charade of some sort every year. And when we were going there one night, over a period of a lifetime, we've all seen people that they can't seem to manage to get to church, but they can manage to get here for right after church and ask you, could they speak to an elder? And it's not long before there's something that they say they need. Well, we got to be careful that we don't do what this church did, including me. Well, this man showed up, and he sat right down there on the front row, and he was there for the whole Bible school, Sunday school, worship service, and he wasn't dressed real good. And after church, we went up and everybody was talking to him. We thought maybe he had moved into the community, and we didn't want to be like those people that welcome the rich people, and then the poor guy, if you don't care, could you sit back there in the corner? And he said he was hoping that the brethren at this church could help him get to Little Rock. And we decided, we said, well, we're going to have a meeting about this. We went down there, and I guarantee you, 2/3 of the men down there said, well, I've heard everything. You know, why don't you just come in here and steal our money, you know? I didn't do that, but I was a little suspicious of it. But we decided that, you know, somebody that wants cash usually will reject being offered food. I don't need food, I want cash, you know. Well, me and the preacher there was a young preacher. He ended up preaching at Chattanooga Hickson Church of Christ. And every Sunday, me and my family and his family, we would go to Clarksville, and there was this fine catfish restaurant. We thought, well, we'll just take him and we'll feed him. On the way there, he was telling us how much he appreciated it. And he told us that from wherever he was from in North Carolina. He said he was an elder. Well, boy, that's a good one. There's a likely. That'll get money out of people. So on the way there, the whole time we were driving there, he didn't do nothing but quote Bible scripture and talk about how churches today need to understand that we've got to do this, and when this happens, people can't conflict with each other, and he's just going on and on and on and on. Well, come to find out, we were all wrong. And me and Joey, we felt so bad about it. He said, how much can you come up with? And I said, well, I come up with as much as you can probably. And he said, let's buy him a ticket to Little Rock and let him just forget about it. So we fed him a meal, and I'm not telling you this to pat myself on the back, because I was as doubtful as everybody else, but they didn't hear what I heard. If they had heard that in that meeting, they would have acted differently. But so we give him some money, put him on the bus, he hugged us, and off he went. So when somebody asks you to go a mile, quit worrying about whether or not they deserve to have you go the mile. Just do it. That's what God's telling us. Just do it. If they ask, just do it. I know it's hard, because you're not going to suffer for it. That's exactly right. I want to refer you back briefly, because I know I've harped on him probably too much, but remember what Brother A.M. Burton said to that college student in Texas. He's shoveling it in faster than I'm shoveling it out. You can't outgive God, is a point I'm trying to make. So if we go, well, I don't know, who are we doubting? We're doubting God. He tells us that he will bless us back, a pressed down measure. Now, I'll tell you something that my wife hates for me to do, but it's a little competitive thing that I like to do. How many of you know what Life cereal is? Probably had it before. It's really good. That's Kathy's favorite cereal. She gets a new box, and we've got this little container from Walmart that's pretty good size. We've learned it. Cereal doesn't go stale if we keep them in those things. And it's got a big porous spout with a hole about that big. Every time I start to open that, she's out, and I'll open that box up, and she'll go, they won't, all that, well, it's not going to fit in there. She says it every single time. But you know what? I'm not going to let that cereal box whip me. I'm going to press on it, I'm going to shake it, and I'm going to get that cereal in there. But you know, more than that, and when we consider the fact that we're talking about God's giving back, that's not it. That's not the end of it. I just can barely get that Life cereal up to that edge. And I always wonder if when I go down, is it going to go, you know? But it doesn't. But now that's me putting it in there. And that's me pressing down and me fooling with it. What else is God going to do? Run over. He's not going to give us back a Life cereal box that's just pretty full. It's going to be all running over. Those are the things that we need to add up in our minds to keep in mind that's going to happen when we give good to other people. So he took care of you. He took care of you twice. You know, if you drop down on page 38 to about 6 or 8 lines up, it says in Psalms 41, 1 through 2, "Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The Lord will deliver him in time of trouble. The Lord will preserve him and keep him alive, and he shall be blessed upon the earth." Don't you think that's what happened there? You were at a time of trouble, and no. It's almost a daily thing if you stop and think about it. Is the bell rung? It has. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Can you imagine the level of trust that's required here? How much trust we have to put in God to be able to just turn tomorrow over to him. Things are getting a little tight financially. I've been doing my part. God's going to take care of me. But if we doubt, are we really trusting him? Not really. That's a good example, both of y'all. That's a good example. You know, before we leave this Luke chapter 6, I want to tell you something. Every nursery pot, which there's a lot of nurserymen in this church, every nurseryman that deals with nursery pots is getting gypped. You got 1 gallon, 2 gallon, 3 gallon, 5, 7, 15s, but not one of them equal that much. I don't know why people do that. Just say 3/4 gallon, but don't tell me it's a gallon when it's 3/4. If you do the cubic inches inside that 1 gallon pot and compare that to cubic inches in a gallon, it's not even close. Well, then why call it a gallon? Well, it sounds good. They don't want? Well, maybe not. In the and you won't suffer for it. Of this verse about pressed down, shaken together, the one thing in that verse that I want you to remember out of today's lesson is that it runs over more than you can imagine. You can't get any more in that container. I get mad every time I open a bag of potato chips. You know when I was growing up, and it's time for us to quit, but when I was growing up, I can remember the only thing I had to read was the cereal box. And I'd read the ingredients, and I'd read the ads, and I'd just read. And I can remember this one line on there, and it said, "This box was full when it left the factory, but some settling of contents may have occurred." Well, let me tell you something. You could at least put a little shaker on that potato chip bag and then finish filling it up for me if you really want to do a good job. But it doesn't work that way a lot of times. I appreciate everybody here. We'll pick up right there next week, and appreciate Jeff visiting with us. And anybody else, if you're visiting, we're glad you're here. Come back, and we'll see you next week.